The bedroom was quiet, almost too quiet. You sat on the bed, the one that was supposed to be shared between you and your husband. But somehow, it still felt like yours alone. Not because of anything dramatic, but simply because Jungkook barely used it. He came home late, left early, and when he was home, he slept in the guest room or his study. You weren't sure if he was trying to be respectful or if he just didn't want to share a space with you yet. Maybe it was both. You leaned back against the pillows, staring up at the ceiling. You had thought marriage would bring change, a new kind of warmth to your life. You had imagined waking up next to someone who cared, talking late into the night about nothing and everything, maybe even the simple joy of coming home to someone who was waiting for you. But reality was different. It wasn't that Jungkook was cruel or distant. He wasn't cold. He tried in small ways, like making sure you had everything you needed, asking if you had eaten, or making light conversation when time allowed. But time was never on your side. Just when a conversation started to feel comfortable, his phone would ring, a meeting would demand his attention, an urgent issue would pull him away, and then you were left alone again, watching the space beside you remain empty. But you had always been alone, hadn't you? Even before marriage, your world was quiet. Your father was the only family you had, and even he was more of a distant presence. He had checked on you occasionally, but the last time you heard anything soft or affectionate from him was on your wedding day. Take care of yourself, that was all he had said before stepping back into his own life, barely calling since then. Maybe that's why this silence didn't feel new. You sighed, running a hand through your hair before pushing yourself up from the bed. Your movements were slow, unhurried. There was no rush. You worked from home, running a small business on your own terms, so time was something you had in abundance. But then, your phone vibrated. You glanced toward the bedside table, brows furrowing at the unfamiliar sound. Your personal phone rarely rang. You reached for it, fingers swiping across the screen, and your breath stilled. A Facebook notification? Your birthday is tomorrow. You blinked, rereading the words. Right, it's tomorrow. Your birthday. You had almost forgotten. It wasn't a date anyone really remembered. Not even yourself. You had never celebrated it properly before. There had been no cakes, no grand celebrations, no one waiting to surprise you at midnight. Birthdays had always been just another day. But this time, it felt different. This time, you were married. Your fingers hovered over the screen, your thoughts drifting to Jungkook. He wouldn't know. No one had told him, not even you. Your lips curled into a small, bitter smile. It had only been 16 days since the wedding, and you haven't talked about anything personal yet. No one had given him a reason to remember, and it wasn't like you had mentioned it. You could tell him now, of course. You could say, tomorrow is my birthday. Do you want to do something together? But something about that felt wrong. You weren't sure why. Maybe because deep down, you wanted to know if he would remember on his own. If despite everything, maybe from somewhere he already knew it was your birthday, but you already knew the answer. Still, that didn't mean you couldn't celebrate. You weren't a child anymore. You didn't need someone to plan a party for you. This was your life, your day, and you could make it exactly how you wanted. For the first time in a long time, you felt a flicker of excitement. You quickly set your phone down and grabbed your laptop, settling it on your lap. Your fingers moved over the keyboard, searching for places to go, things to do. Yin, what do I want to do? The question echoed in your mind, a simple question, yet one you had never truly asked yourself before. Your mind buzzed with excitement as you leaned back against the headboard. Your fingers tapped lightly against the keyboard, your lips curling into a small smile as endless possibilities filled your mind. A movie night? You tilted your head, considering it. No, too simple. Just watching a movie didn't feel enough. You wanted more, maybe a dinner date. Something intimate, just the two of you. Or an amusement park. The idea of thrilling rides and cotton candy made you smile wider. A fireworks show. Yes, that would be perfect. You could already picture the bright explosions of color in the night sky, the way the lights would reflect in Jungkook's eyes. The thought sent a strange warmth through your chest, one you quickly ignored. Yin, yes, this will all work, you murmured to yourself, nodding in approval as you reached for your phone. First, you called a high-end restaurant and reserved a special couple's dinner for the evening. The irony of planning your own birthday celebration never even crossed your mind. How strange it was to be planning your own birthday like this. If anything, it felt like you were arranging a celebration for someone else. But you didn't care. It wasn't about who planned it. It was about the experience. You wanted this day to be memorable. After finalizing the dinner reservation, you moved on to the next step, booking tickets for a newly released movie. It would be the perfect way to start the evening. Before heading to dinner, you stared at the laptop screen, biting your lower lip and thought, Yin, the evening is almost planned. But you weren't satisfied just yet. You wanted more and more so that not a single minute is wasted. Your fingers hovered over the keyboard before you quickly booked a fireworks show right after dinner. That way, the night would end beautifully. Now, for the morning, your eyes gleamed as you pre-booked a visit to an amusement park. You could already imagine yourself riding the fastest roller coasters, indulging in overpriced snacks, and maybe even playing those silly carnival games. A full day. A day meant to be cherished. You exhaled slowly, your heart still pounding with anticipation. Then, suddenly, a thought crept into your mind. A kiss. Your breath hitched slightly. What if tomorrow, you initiated something? Your fingers stilled over the keyboard, your eyes widening slightly as warmth crept up your cheeks. The thought of kissing Jungkook sent a nervous thrill through your body. It wasn't something you had planned, but now that it was in your head, it wouldn't leave. It wasn't like you and Jungkook were affectionate. Apart from the brief peck on your wedding day, it was nothing. He wasn't the type to initiate romance, and you had never pushed for it. But maybe tomorrow, maybe you could take the first step. You swallowed, pressing your lips together to stop the small, shy smile threatening to form. The idea made your heart race, but you quickly shook your head, brushing it aside before your thoughts spiraled any further. Right now, you needed to focus on your plans. With everything booked and set, you closed your laptop with a content sigh, stretching your arms above your head. You finally stood up, feeling lighter, happier, making your way to the kitchen. You hummed softly, your steps light and carefree. And the worst part, not once had you even thought to ask Jungkook if he was free, because deep down, you had already made up your mind. You were celebrating it, and the thought didn't cross your mind to inform him. Jungkook sat in his office, gripping his forehead with one hand while the other sifted through the scattered documents on his desk, his brows furrowed in frustration, his sharp eyes scanning every inch of the paperwork, searching something desperately, but it wasn't there. His most important file, the one containing crucial details for today's meeting, had disappeared. A deep, anxious knot twisted in his stomach. His mind raced, trying to recall the last time he had seen it. He was always meticulous, never careless when it came to his work. Losing something so important was unthinkable. Yet, here he was, helpless. He clenched his jaw, his breathing growing heavy. The clock was ticking, each passing second making his panic rise. The clients were already waiting, expecting a flawless presentation. But he had nothing to show them. Jungkook. Shit, he muttered under his breath, raking a hand through his dark hair. His nerves were shot. Then, a sharp knock at the door. His head snapped up, irritation flashing in his eyes. The door cracked open, and his manager stepped inside, hesitating before speaking. Sir, the clients are waiting. Jungkook's jaw tightened, his pulse pounding against his temples. He had no choice. He had to face them. Taking a deep breath, he straightened his tie, forcing his emotions into check. His face became unreadable, his sharp features masking the frustration boiling inside. Jungkook, I'm coming, he said, his voice cold and steady. He adjusted his suit jacket, squared his shoulders, and followed his manager out of the office, his steps heavy but controlled. The meeting room was silent. The air was thick with anticipation as Jungkook stood at the head of the long conference table. His sharp eyes scanned the faces of the waiting clients, their gazes expectant, some even slightly impatient. His heartbeat pounded against his ribs. Then, he spoke. Jungkook, I sincerely apologize. His voice was calm but firm. The file containing today's presentation has gone missing. I take full responsibility for this mistake. A heavy silence followed. Jungkook kept his posture straight, his hands clasped in front of him, concealing the tension coiling in his muscles. His pride burned at admitting failure, but there was no other way. Seconds stretched unbearably, the weight of their unspoken judgment pressing down on him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mr. Lee, the oldest and most respected among them, let out a low hum. Mr. Jungkook, he began, his voice measured and deep. These things happen. We can reschedule the meeting for tomorrow. There's no need to rush. Jungkook blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected leniency. You're a trusted and well-respected businessman, Mr. Lee continued. A minor setback like this won't change our view of you. Relief flooded Jungkook's chest, though his expression remained unreadable. He quickly bowed, his voice laced with gratitude. Jungkook, thank you, Mr. Lee. I'll ensure tomorrow's presentation exceeds expectations. Mr. Lee offered a small, reassuring smile before standing, patting Jungkook's shoulder in a rare gesture of respect. Just don't overwork yourself, son, he advised. A sharp mind is more valuable than a sleepless night. With that, the older man exited, the rest of the clients following suit. The moment the door shut, Jungkook let out a slow breath, his shoulders dropping slightly. Thank God. But the problem wasn't over. The file was still missing, and now, he had no choice but to recreate everything from scratch, that too overnight. His fingers pressed against his temples, his headache intensifying. This was going to be a long night. Without another word, he turned on his heels and strode out of the meeting room, already planning how to fix the mess before morning came. The night was unusually silent as Jungkook drove through the empty streets, his fingers gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. The city lights blurred past him, but his thoughts were elsewhere, scattered, tangled, and unbearably loud. His head throbbed, his body ached. Today had been hell, he sighed, pressing his foot against the accelerator as his thoughts spiraled. Today could have ended so much sooner. He could have had time to unwind, to sit down with you, to actually talk. The thought made his stomach churn with something he didn't quite understand. It hadn't even been a full month since your marriage, yet he already felt like he was failing as a husband. He wasn't neglecting you on purpose, but work always came first. And now, thinking about it, he realized he had barely spent any meaningful time with you since the wedding. Was it always going to be like this? Would you get tired of waiting for him? His jaw clenched at the thought. With another deep sigh, he pulled into the driveway, turning off the engine before resting his head against the steering wheel. His entire body felt heavy, exhausted beyond belief, but the moment he lifted his head, his eyes instinctively searched for you. The house was quiet. He stepped inside, removing his shoes as his gaze wandered toward the dim glow coming from the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. You were still awake. Something in his chest twisted. How would it feel to sleep beside you instead of spending every night buried in work? Instead of isolating himself in the study or the guest room? The thought of returning to a warm bed, of feeling someone's presence beside him, was strangely comforting. He hesitated before making his way toward the room. He pushed the door open, ever so slightly, careful not to make a sound, and then he saw you. Lying on the bed, scrolling through your phone, unaware to his presence. For a moment, he just stood there, watching you, his gaze traced over your features, the way your brows furrowed slightly, the soft glow of the screen illuminating your face, the way your hair fell messily over the pillow. He wondered what you were thinking. Were you waiting for him? Did you miss him? His fingers absent-mindedly played with the doorknob as an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. He knew he should leave. He had work to do, an entire file to recreate from scratch before morning. And yet, he couldn't seem to pull himself away. His eyes flickered to the bed again. How many nights had he thought about lying beside you? About hearing your voice before falling asleep? A sudden vibration in his pocket made him flinch. Shit. His heart jumped as he quickly fished out his phone, silencing the call before it could break the peaceful quiet of the room. You shifted slightly on the bed. Jungkook held his breath, but you didn't notice him. Letting out a slow exhale, he took a step back, forcing himself to turn away. He hurried toward his office room, shutting the door behind him before answering the call. Jungkook. Yes? His voice came out slightly strained. His manager's voice came through the other end. Sir, I've sent the necessary content. If you send me your part, I'll help compile the file. Jungkook closed his eyes, exhaling in relief. Finally, some help. Jungkook. All right, he muttered. I'll send it right away. Double quotes. At least now he wouldn't have to work on it alone. But even as he sat down at his desk, trying to focus on the screen in front of him, his thoughts drifted. To the warm glow of the bedroom. To the peaceful rise and fall of your breath. To the quiet longing he didn't quite understand. And for the first time in a long while, work didn't feel as important. You lay sprawled across the bed, phone in hand, but your focus had long drifted away from the screen. The room was quiet, save for the occasional sound of the clock ticking away, marking the slow passage of time. You checked the time again, still no sign of him. Your heart sank slightly. Jungkook was always late, but tonight, it felt different. The house was too quiet. Usually, you could at least hear the soft creak of the main door when he arrived or the quiet sound of his footsteps moving around the house. But tonight, there was nothing. You sat up, pushing the covers aside. A part of you told yourself not to overthink it. He was probably still working. Well, would it be weird to call him? You had never called him just to ask when he was coming home. The two of you weren't that close yet. Your marriage was just on paper, a deal signed in ink. But still, something inside you longed to hear his voice. You hesitated, fingers hovering over your phone screen. Would he think you were being clingy? Would he even pick up? Before you could make a decision, a yawn escaped your lips. The exhaustion from waiting, from overthinking, was finally catching up to you. With a tired sigh, you kept your phone aside. You would just wait until you heard any movements outside. You sighed, sinking back into the pillows, your thoughts slowly fading as sleep took over. The last thing you heard was the soft hum of the air conditioner before everything went dark. It was almost a.m. when Jungkook finally leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. His head was pounding, his body stiff from sitting for hours. But at least the work was done. The last document had been finalized. The last report had been sent. The workload that had kept him trapped in his office all night was finally over. For the first time in hours, he let himself relax. He rubbed his temples, his eyes burning from the lack of sleep. The empty coffee packets littered his desk, a pathetic attempt to keep himself awake throughout the night. He had barely moved from his seat, too focused, too desperate to finish the work in time. But now, it was over and only the meeting was left. His fingers curled around his phone as he stood up, stretching his aching muscles. The dim lighting of his office felt suffocating, so he stepped outside. And then, his eyes landed on your bedroom door. It was closed. Jungkook stopped in his tracks, gripping the documents in his hand. A strange emotion flickered in his chest as he stared at the door. Knowing you were inside, sleeping peacefully, the thought made his chest warm. He had promised himself that his work wouldn't get in the way of this marriage. He had promised himself that he wouldn't ignore you. But he had failed again. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his messy hair. This was the last time. He refused to let this distance grow any further. Tomorrow, things would change. And no more work excuses. No more silent nights spent apart. No more making you wait. Tomorrow, he would make sure you felt every bit of love he had for you. He had no idea what day it was. And no idea that today wasn't just another ordinary morning. And no idea that today was your birthday. Work, meetings, deals, that's all today was about. At least, that's what he thought. As soon as the blaring alarm shattered the morning silence, you jolted awake. Your heart immediately raced. Your tired eyes darted to the clock, and panic set in when you saw it was already a.m. You felt groggy, your eyelids heavy with sleep, but a sudden rush of adrenaline made you jump out of the bed. Your mouth felt dry, and your limbs felt heavy, as the realization hit you. Yin, shit, I forgot to tell him we have to go today. In a hurried motion, you dashed out of your bedroom, hoping to find Jungkook in the study or the guest room. The house felt eerily quiet, and your heart sank when you realized he was nowhere to be found. You paused in the middle of the living room, your pulse quickening. A.M. was fast approaching, and you needed to leave by 10:30 for the day's plans. A wave of frustration washed over you as you cursed yourself for not calling him earlier. Yin, how could I sleep without telling him? I should have called him instead. We have to leave by a.m. to make it to the rides at 10:30. Cursing yourself for not calling sooner, you grabbed your phone with shaking hands, desperately dialing his number. As you sank onto the couch, you felt a mix of excitement and nerves, your heart racing at the thought of spending the day with him. Meanwhile, Jungkook stood at the head of the conference table, commanding the room with confidence. He was in the midst of a crucial meeting, his voice steady as he detailed the latest project. His colleagues listened intently, their eyes fixed on the projected slides behind him. Jungkook, so from here, we will implement the new marketing strategy, focusing on reaching our target demographic through. Just then suddenly, his phone buzzed loudly on the table, cutting through the serious atmosphere like a knife. All eyes shifted to the source of the interruption, and Jungkook felt his face flush with embarrassment. He hurriedly glanced at the screen kept on the table, and his heart skipped a beat when he saw your name. The words "my wife" glowing brightly. It was a rare occurrence for you to call him, and a knot of concern formed in his stomach. His eyes frowned immediately as he thought, what if something urgent was wrong? Sitting beside Jungkook's seat, Mr. Lee noticed the caller ID light up on Jungkook's phone, and a chuckle escaped him. He stifled a laugh, a knowing smile spreading across his face as he playfully looked at Jungkook. Mr. Lee, looks like someone has a call from the wife. You better pick it up. Jungkook, we can take a break. It's been a long session, but come fast. His voice carried a teasing tone, and the rest of the team joined in, their faces breaking into smiles at the revelation. They all really needed a break. Jungkook felt a wave of relief wash over him. The thought of ignoring your call made his stomach twist. He appreciated Mr. Lee's lighthearted gesture, grateful for the opportunity to step away. Jungkook, thank you, Mr. Lee. I'll be right back. He nodded quickly, his heart racing with a mix of anticipation and curiosity. He picked up his phone, shooting an apologetic glance at his colleagues as he made his way out of the room. The door closed softly behind him, sealing off the world of work for a moment as he focused solely on you. Once in the hallway, Jungkook pressed the phone to his ear, feeling the weight of the moment. The soft hum of activity faded into the background, leaving only the sound of his heartbeat echoing in his ears. As the call connected, he took a deep breath, trying to quell the rush of emotions surging within him. Jungkook, hello, Yin. The sound of your name rolled off his tongue like a warm embrace. It ignited a flutter in his heart. He was eager to hear your voice, to feel connected to you even from a distance. Yin, Jungkook, please come home. We'll be late, you said in a hurried tone, making his brow furrowed in confusion. Jungkook, huh? But for what? A silence filled the air, stretching uncomfortably as he awaited your response. You blinked, your mind racing. You wanted to spill the details of your plans, to share the excitement that bubbled inside you. But part of you wanted it to be a surprise. You bit your nails nervously, your heart pounding. Yin, we have somewhere to go. Can you come? Your voice was hopeful, filled with anticipation. But as Jungkook processed your words, he felt his heart sink. This was the first time you were calling him, and the thought of leaving his important meeting tugged at him like a heavy weight. Jungkook, Yin, I can't come right now, but I'll try to get there early. Silence enveloped you both, the air thick with unspoken disappointment. Your heart thumped hard in your chest. What was he saying? No? But everything was planned. The reservations, the special moments, you could feel them slipping away like sand through your fingers. Yin, Jungkook, how much time will it take? Your voice trembled slightly, and you could almost hear him pause on the other end, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. You could hear him hesitate, a soft hum drifting over the line, making your anxiety spike. Jungkook, I'll be free around 4 to 5, I promise. As soon as I'm done, I'll come. Frustration bubbled up inside you, rising like bile in your throat. You pressed your lips together, trying to suppress the disappointment threatening to spill over. That was far too late. Yin, Jungkook, that's hours from now. Is there no way you could come now? Your voice was laced with hope, but you could sense the heaviness in Jungkook's voice as he struggled with your request. Jungkook, okay, at least tell me where you want to go. I'll assign a driver right now, and in no minutes he will be on the doorsteps. You quickly cut him off, a wave of frustration washing over you. Yin, no, it's fine, but do call me when you're done, okay? His heart ached at the sound of your disappointment, and he wanted nothing more than to be there for you. Jungkook, yes, I will. I'm really sorry again. His voice was sincere, filled with regret. You hung up immediately, the excitement of your birthday dampened by the waiting game. Meanwhile, Jungkook stood in the hallway, phone still pressed to his ear, wishing he could take back his words. He felt torn between his responsibilities and the desire to be there for you. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the disappointment as he returned to the meeting. But the anticipation of seeing you later kept him grounded. The thought of making it up to you filled him with determination. Your heart felt heavier than ever, like a weight pressing down on your chest. This was not what you had expected for your birthday. Everything you had imagined, the laughter, the shared kiss, the joy of being with Jungkook, had shattered in an instant. Yin, what the hell? The frustration boiled over as you threw your phone aside onto the couch. You sank back against the cushions, burying your face in your hands, feeling the sting of unshed tears. It felt unfair. Yin, I hate this. I wanted to celebrate with him. Thoughts raced through your mind, battling against one another. You imagined calling him back, begging him to come home, to tell him that it was your birthday, that you needed him there. But no, you couldn't do that. You didn't want to come across as desperate, as if you were pleading for his attention. You wanted him by your side because he genuinely wanted to be there, not out of obligation or pity. Sighing deeply, you pushed yourself up from the couch, your phone in your hand. You trudged toward your bedroom, each step heavy with disappointment, feeling a sense of defeat creeping in. But as you reached the door, something stirred inside you. You glanced at the bed, the sight of it suddenly overwhelming. It loomed like a reminder of all the moments you didn't want to face. The loneliness of spending your birthday sulking and waiting for him on the bed didn't feel right, because deep down, you knew you deserved better than that. Yin, should I just go by myself? A thought flickered in your mind, igniting a small spark of determination within you. Yes, you could do this. It didn't matter if someone was with you or not. You had worked hard to create a special day for yourself, and you refused to let it slip away. A bright smile began to spread across your face, pushing away the shadows of disappointment that had clouded your mind. Yin, yes, I'll go by myself. Excitement surged through you as you jumped up, feeling the adrenaline rush in your veins yet again. You dashed toward the wardrobe, throwing open the doors and scanning the options inside. Finally, you spotted it, the perfect dress. You pulled it out, holding it against yourself and smiling at your reflection in the mirror. Once dressed, you turned your attention to your makeup. You applied foundation to even out your skin tone, then brushed on a soft blush to give your cheeks a healthy glow. You focused on your eyes, layering on mascara to make your lashes stand out, and added a touch of shimmering eyeshadow that sparkled like the stars. As you finished up, you stepped back and admired your reflection. You looked and felt beautiful, ready to embrace the world and celebrate yourself. Yin, today is my day. I deserve to celebrate, no matter what. With one last glance in the mirror, you grabbed your bag, checking to make sure you had everything you needed: your wallet, phone, and the online book tickets for your reservations. Today was about you, and you were going to make it unforgettable. The taxi ride to the amusement park felt longer than usual, but as soon as you caught sight of the towering rides and the bustling crowd, a spark of excitement ignited in your chest. You clutched the tickets in your hands, stepping out onto the pavement, taking in the mix of scents, freshly popped popcorn, sugary cotton candy, and the crisp, metallic tang of the roller coaster rails in the air. The entrance line wasn't too long, and within minutes, you had checked in. A sense of freedom washed over you as you stepped inside, eyes scanning the colorful attractions, the flashing lights, and the delighted shrieks of people enjoying the rides. A small smile crept onto your lips. Yin, all right, I'm ready to go. You wasted no time. The first thing that caught your attention was the roller coaster. It stood tall and intimidating. Your heart pounded in excitement as you rushed toward the line, gripping the safety bar. Once you were seated, the attendant secured your belt. Double-checking before giving a thumbs up, you glanced around, noticing couples holding hands, friends laughing together, and families bonding over the shared thrill. A pang of loneliness hit you, but you quickly shook it off and thought, I'm here to have fun. I don't need anyone to do that. With a sudden jerk, the ride began moving, slowly climbing up the towering peak. The wind tousled your hair, and as you reached the top, a rush of adrenaline shot through your veins. Then, whoosh, the coaster plummeted down at lightning speed. Your stomach dropped, a scream ripping from your throat as the wind lashed against your face. Your laughter mixed with the chorus of shrieks around you as the coaster twisted, turned, and flipped, sending you into an electrifying whirlwind of emotions. By the time it slowed to a stop, you were breathless, your pulse racing, but you weren't done. One ride after another, you hopped from a spinning teacup ride to a dizzying pirate ship, then to bumper cars, where you let out loud, carefree laughter as you crashed into strangers. The hours slipped away in a blur of excitement, your worries momentarily forgotten. Yet, despite all the fun, a nagging thought remained at the back of your mind. It was 2 p.m. You checked your phone. No calls, no messages. Your chest tightened slightly. Jungkook had really missed all of this. Yin, his loss, shaking your head. You tucked your phone back into your pocket and made your way toward a small cafe nearby. The cozy interior was filled with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries. You ordered a sandwich and a smoothie, enjoying the brief moment of peace before heading straight to the movie theater. The moment you stepped inside, the cool air wrapped around you like a blanket, the dim lighting, the scent of buttered popcorn, and the quiet murmurs of people settling into their seats created the perfect atmosphere. You held your ticket, scanning the rows in search of your seat, when, thud, a sudden force shoved into you from behind, making you stumble forward. Your breath hitched as your phone slipped from your grasp, disappearing into the darkness between the seats. You turned around, your eyes narrowing at the broad-shouldered man who had just bumped into you. But instead of apologizing, or even acknowledging what had happened, he simply walked away. Your jaw clenched. Yin, Seriously? No sorry or anything. Huffing, you crouched down, peering between the rows, but the darkness made it impossible to see anything. You hesitated before turning to a nearby woman. Yin, excuse me, could you please use your flashlight? I dropped my phone. She nodded, pulling out her phone and directing the light toward the floor. The moment your eyes landed on your phone, your heart sank. The screen was shattered, completely ruined, like someone had stomped on it with heels. A wave of panic hit you. You quickly picked it up, frantically pressing the power button. Nothing. Your chest tightened. Yin, no, please work. But it was dead. Before you could process the situation, a voice echoed through the theater. Staff, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The movie is about to begin. Letting out a slow breath, you realized there was nothing you could do right now. You gave the woman who helped you a small, grateful nod before hurrying to your seat, tucking your broken phone into your purse. You sighed. Yin, might as well enjoy the movie. Jungkook sat frozen in his chair, his fingers gripping the armrest as a wave of frustration crashed over him. The entire day had been a nightmare of endless meetings, voices droning around him like an annoying hum, suffocating him, pulling him away from what really mattered. But no matter how loud the boardroom had been, your voice was louder in his head. The soft, sweet way you had asked him to come home, the quiet expectation in your tone, the way you had hesitated, hoping, pleasing, for him to make time for you. And yet, he had let work consume him again. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his bag, but when his gaze flickered to the clock on his desk, his heart stopped. The numbers glowed mockingly. 5:43 p.m. Jungkook's entire body went rigid. No, this can't be right. He had promised you. 4 p.m. He was supposed to be free by 4. Yet here he was, nearly 2 hours late. His stomach twisted violently, and a sharp, bitter taste settled in his throat. How could he have let this happen? His own words echoed back at him. I promise, as soon as I'm done, I'll come. But now, the promise felt like a cruel joke. His pulse spiked as he grabbed his phone, his fingers clenching around it as he immediately dialed your number. It rang once, twice, and then, the person you are trying to reach is not available. Please leave a message after the tone. His breath hitched. He pulled the phone away, staring at the screen in disbelief before calling again. Same response, again and again, but still nothing. Were you purposely shutting him out? Or worse, was something wrong? His jaw tightened, a dangerous mix of guilt and panic swelling inside him. He had been so caught up in his work that he hadn't even bothered to ask why you wanted to spend time together today. What if it was something important? What if you had been waiting, looking at the time, realizing with every passing second that he wasn't going to come? The thought made his chest ache in a way he couldn't ignore. Without wasting another second, he grabbed his keys and stormed out of the office, his mind only focused on one thing, reaching you. The soft hum of conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the distant melody of a piano filled the elegant restaurant, creating a cozy yet unfamiliar atmosphere. Around you, you sat there alone, your fingers tracing invisible patterns on the tablecloth, eyes occasionally flickering to the time displayed on the restaurant's ornate wall clock, 6 o'clock p.m. Your thoughts wandered. What if Jungkook was calling you right now? What if he was already home, wondering where you were? The idea made your chest tighten, but there was nothing you could do. Your phone was still at the repair shop. Worse, you didn't even remember Jungkook's number. A small, bitter chuckle escaped your lips. Not that it matters anymore. You had spent the day making memories, trying to enjoy yourself. But now, as you sat in the restaurant you had so carefully chosen, an odd emptiness started to creep in. You forced yourself to push the feeling away as a waiter approached, gracefully placing the dishes before you. Your eyes widened slightly, lips parting in admiration. The food looked perfect. Everything was plated so beautifully, just as you had imagined. The warm aroma of the freshly prepared meal reached your nose, and for a moment, you forgot everything else. Instinctively, your hands reached for your phone, eager to capture the moment, but your fingers met only air. Reality hit you like a slap. No phone, no camera, no one beside you. The realization settled heavy in your chest, but you swallowed it down, offering the waiter a small, polite smile. You even helped him adjust the plates, to which he gave you a brief, surprised, yet fond glance. It was strange how such a simple gesture could make someone notice you. But the moment didn't last long. Something inside you still felt unsettled, and before you even realized it, you spoke up. Yin, excuse me, I ordered a cake too. The waiter nodded immediately, his voice gentle. I'll bring it right away, Mom. But just as he turned, a sudden wave of hesitation crashed over you. Did you really want it anymore? The excitement, the anticipation. You had it this morning, but now it felt different. It felt pointless. Your heart squeezed as you quickly shook your head. Yin. No, actually, is there any way I could cancel it? The waiter paused, eyebrows knitting together slightly. Aren't you celebrating anymore? You forced a small chuckle, though it lacked warmth. Your fingers nervously fidgeted with the napkin on your lap. Yin. No, the plan changed. I want to cancel the cake, please. He hesitated for a second before nodding. Without another word, he poured the deep red wine into your glass and quietly stepped away. And then, there was silence. You sat there, staring at the meal in front of you. It looked perfect. Everything was perfect. But why did it feel so empty? A heavy weight settled in your chest, one you had been avoiding all day. This is your reality. You had spent hours trying to convince yourself that you were okay, that you didn't need anyone, that you could handle being alone. And for most of the day, you succeeded. But now, sitting in this elegant restaurant, surrounded by strangers lost in their own conversations, you had never felt lonelier. Jungkook had his reasons. You reminded yourself, he didn't even know it was your birthday. So really, who was there to blame? No one. Yet, that didn't stop the ache inside you. That didn't stop the quiet longing that whispered inside your heart, begging for someone to be here with you. A single tear slipped from your eye, trailing down your cheek like a soft betrayal. But before it could fall further, you quickly wiped it away. You wouldn't let this moment define your day. Yin. I can't ruin my birthday like this, you muttered under your breath, forcing a smile as you picked up your fork. You took a deep breath, pushing away the emotions clawing at your chest. You would enjoy this meal, you would enjoy the rest of your night, but the plan of going to the night show, you dropped it. You didn't have the energy anymore, not when reality had finally caught up with you. Jungkook's footsteps echoed through the quiet house as he moved restlessly, his jaw locked in frustration. The silence felt unbearable. The air was thick with the tension of his own thoughts, his gut twisting into painful knots. You weren't home. He had checked everywhere, the living room, the kitchen, even your bedroom. Nothing. He pulled his phone out again, dialing your number, but his heart sank deeper into his stomach when he was met with the same robotic voice. The person you are trying to reach is not available. Please leave a message after the tone. Jungkook clenched his jaw, gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. His patience was running thin, and the worry clawing at his chest was starting to suffocate him. Why weren't you answering? Where the hell were you? His mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. You hadn't told him where you were going. You hadn't mentioned anything about plans, and now you were unreachable. His frustration spiked. Jungkook. Shit. He cursed under his breath, raking a hand through his hair. He should have come home earlier. He should have called you during the day. He should have. Jungkook exhaled sharply. He couldn't just sit here and wait. He had no idea where you could be. No idea who to ask. He didn't even know any of your friends personally. And your father was out of town. It left him with no leads, no answers. He needed to find you. Grabbing his car keys from the table, he spun on his heel, ready to storm out, until he heard it. The faint sound of metal clinking, the familiar shuffle of keys against the front door's lock. His entire body froze for a split second. Then, his heart slammed into his ribcage as realization hit him. It was you. Without wasting another moment, Jungkook rushed toward the door. And then, there you were. The second you stepped inside, your eyes widened slightly at the sight of him. But before Jungkook could speak, your lips curled into a soft, almost dreamy smile. Yin. Jungkook. You said his name so gently, so naturally, that it sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. But something was off. Jungkook's breath hitched as he got closer. The scent of expensive wine lingered in the air around you. His eyes swept over you, searching for signs of instability. But you weren't stumbling. Your steps were sure, your posture still elegant, your body moving perfectly fine. But your eyes were hazy, slightly unfocused, a little too slow to blink. Jungkook's brows knitted together. Jungkook. Yin. Did you drink? His voice was low, cautious. Instead of answering, you pouted, your lower lip pushing out slightly, and Jungkook's gaze flickered down to your hands as you suddenly let go of the shopping bags you'd been carrying. The bags hit the floor with a soft thud, spilling slightly at the edges, revealing glimpses of clothes and little things you had bought, proof of an entire day spent outside without him. Jungkook's stomach twisted. Jungkook. where were you? His voice sharpened, his concern pressing into something heavier now. Why weren't you picking up your phone? You blinked up at him, your lips curving into an innocent smile as if he wasn't standing there, barely holding himself together with worry. Yin, I took a taxi, you answered simply, brushing past his concerns like they meant nothing. Jungkook's heart pounded as he held your shoulders, his fingers curling against the fabric of your dress. His grip was firm but not forceful, his eyes burning into yours with an intensity that sent a shiver down your spine. He was desperate for answers, for reassurance, for anything that could ease the storm raging inside him. Jungkook, I told you to take a driver, Yin, he murmured, his voice laced with frustration and concern. Where were you? Your eyelashes fluttered as you tilted your head slightly, gazing up at him with slow, dazed eyes. Your pupils were slightly dilated, your lips parted just enough to let out a soft breath. There was something about the way you looked at him, vulnerable yet distant, there, but not entirely present. Jungkook's stomach twisted uncomfortably. He hesitated, then slowly, his large palm cupped your cheek, his thumb brushed against your skin, coaxing you gently, his voice dropping to a whisper. Jungkook, tell me please. You blinked slowly, your lips trembling slightly. Yin, I was, but the words didn't come out. You bit your lower lip, your gaze flickering away as you reached up, fingers delicately wrapping around his wrist, and then you removed his hand from your face. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat, his heart clenched painfully. It was subtle, but it felt like rejection. His lips parted slightly, his brows furrowing as a strange, unfamiliar ache settled in his chest. You exhaled, your voice barely above a whisper. Yin, I was just enjoying myself. Jungkook stared at you, trying to process your words. Jungkook, enjoying yourself, he echoed, his voice low and uncertain. You nodded, looking away. Yin, I told you we had plans. I had everything reserved already. I couldn't just cancel everything last minute. His jaw tightened. Jungkook, Yin, his tone was strained, frustration bleeding into his voice. Jungkook, we could have gone another day. You didn't have to go like that. His brows furrowed deeper. Wait, did you go with your friends? Your body stiffened. That was all the answer he needed. Jungkook's stomach sank. Jungkook, Yin, his voice was softer now, almost pleading. Who were you with? You turned away. You weren't going to answer, but Jungkook wasn't going to let this go. Jungkook, Yin, he followed you, his voice steady but laced with worry. It's PM. You weren't answering my calls. Where is your phone? Who are you with? His voice never rose, but the concern in his tone was heavy, so heavy it almost made your steps falter. You swallowed hard, your fingers gripping your purse. Yin, I was alone. Jungkook froze as his breath caught in his throat. Alone? His heart plummeted. You hesitated before adding, Yin, my phone broke. Jungkook couldn't breathe. Alone. You spent the whole day alone. His chest tightened painfully as he took a slow step toward you, his voice quieter as always. Jungkook, where did you break your phone? You hesitated, then, almost reluctantly, you murmured, Yin, at the movie theater. Jungkook felt like he was drowning in the pot of confusion. A movie theater. You went to a movie alone. He couldn't just process it, his brows furrowed, confusion clouding his face. Jungkook, Yin, I could have taken you to dinner, and all the reservations you made. I could have gone with you. His voice was gentler now, almost desperate. Why did you have to go alone? What was the rush? You halted. Jungkook's breathing grew shallow as you turned around slowly. Then, you looked at him, and the look in your eyes, it made his chest ache. Your voice came out steady at first. Yin, why would we go any other day? Then, your tone shifted. My birthday is today. Jungkook paused immediately, his eyes widened. Wouldn't it be pointless to go any other day? Jungkook felt the weight of the world crash down on him. His mind went blank for a moment, his breath hitching as the realization settled in. Today was your birthday. His heart clenched so painfully that he almost staggered back. How could he not know? How could he be so oblivious? The guilt that had been eating at him all day turned into something far worse, shame. You had gone through the entire day by yourself, managing everything on your own, all while waiting for him, and he never showed up. The disappointment in himself was suffocating. He had failed you in a way he never imagined possible, and the thought of it made his stomach churn. He wanted to move, to say something, to fix what was already broken, but the words got stuck in his throat. Jungkook, his voice cracked, and he quickly swallowed, forcing himself to steady his breathing. Yin, I'm so sorry. His gaze was desperate, searching your face for something. anything that would tell him you weren't as hurt as he feared. I didn't know. I swear, if I had, he took a step toward you, reaching out instinctively, but before he could touch you, you simply shrugged. That single action hurt more than if you had yelled at him. Yin, it's fine, Jungkook. Your voice was soft, almost indifferent, and it made his chest tighten even more. You weren't mad. You weren't blaming him. You weren't crying. You weren't arguing. You were just accepting it. And somehow, that was worse. You don't have to be sorry for that. You continued, flashing a small, almost empty smile. I didn't tell you this to make you feel guilty or for you to pity me. I had a great time, really. It didn't feel like I needed someone else there. Jungkook blinked, his heartbeat hammering against his ribcage. He felt his stomach drop. Did you mean that? Did you really not need him? Was that what he had turned into? Someone insignificant in your life? The thought made his throat tighten. His hands curled into fists at his sides, nails digging into his palms. Jungkook, you must have had your own reasons, you added, turning your head slightly away. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, shaking his head. No, this wasn't right, Jungkook. Yin, you should have told me, he said, his voice low but urgent. I would have rearranged my meeting. I feel so stupid. He felt frustrated at himself, at everything, at the fact that he was too late. He should have asked. He should have known, but you only sighed, scratching your neck as if you were tired of this conversation. Yin, I told you, it doesn't matter. Your voice was firm but quiet. I've never really celebrated my birthday before, but today, I just felt like I should, and I did. You hesitated slightly before adding, and yes, you had your own reasons not to come. I'm not blaming you, Jungkook. I'm really not. Jungkook clenched his jaw. Every word you spoke felt like a knife twisting inside his chest. Yin, but it was my day. You finished softly, your gaze unwavering, and I celebrated it the best way I could. Jungkook inhaled sharply. Why did this hurt so much? Jungkook, Yin, why are you talking like this? His voice wavered slightly, filled with something raw, something painful. He hated how this conversation was going, how distant you sounded. It's not just you, it's me too. I wanted to be with you today. It was my wife's birthday. You hesitated, your lips parted as if to say something, then closed again. Finally, after a long pause, you murmured, Yin, I did call you. He sighed as he had already guessed how this conversation would go. He knew you would act indifferent. The realization that he hadn't even known it was your birthday, that he hadn't even thought to ask, was eating him alive. Before he could stop himself, he moved closer, his body acting on instinct. His hands twitched at his sides before he gently leaned down, pressing a soft, hesitant kiss to your forehead. You froze. Jungkook had never done this before, never touched you so gently, never tried to comfort you in a way that actually felt real. His lips lingered against your skin for just a second longer before he pulled back, his dark eyes searching yours. Jungkook, happy birthday, Yin, he murmured, his voice softer than ever. Jungkook, and I'm really sorry but here you only sighed. You stepped back slightly, just enough to put distance between you both. Yin, don't. Jungkook, you said, shaking your head. There's nothing to be sorry about. Jungkook frowned. How could you say that? Yin, it's your life, Jungkook. You don't have to force yourself for me. Jungkook, there is something to be sorry about, he countered, his voice firmer now. You're my wife, Yin, and you let out a hollow laugh. Yin, have you ever considered me one? You interrupted, your eyes locking onto his, sharp and unwavering. Have you ever taken the time to be with me, to take me out somewhere, to just talk to me? Jungkook opened his mouth, but nothing came out, because the answer was no. You had never asked for much. You had never begged for his attention or forced him to care. But the alcohol in your system, the pain, the weight of years of loneliness, it was all pushing you to the edge, and for the first time, you couldn't hold it in anymore. Yin, then why does it matter today? You asked, your voice breaking slightly despite your attempt to keep it steady. Why are you acting like this just because it's my birthday? Do you even realize how pathetic that is? Jungkook swallowed hard. It mattered. It mattered because it was you. But before he could say anything, you kept going. Yin, it's not just about today, you said, shaking your head. It's about everything. I've been alone my whole life. Jungkook, your voice wavered, but you still held yourself tall. I've learned to be okay with it, and I can stay alone now too. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. You inhaled sharply, blinking away the sting behind your eyes. Yin, so don't say sorry, you murmured. Not just because you think today should have been special. I was fine before this, and I'll be fine after. And then you turned and walked away. Jungkook didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even breathe. He just stood there, watching you leave, his mind spinning, his heart sinking. Was this really your reality? Had you truly been alone your whole life? And worst of all, had he been making you feel that way too? It hit him all at once. You weren't mad, you weren't even disappointed. You just didn't expect anything from him anymore. And that's what shook him to his core, because this wasn't just about your birthday. This was about everything. To you, this marriage was just an obligation. And he was just someone you lived with, not someone you expected something from. For the first time, Jungkook realized something terrifying. You weren't waiting for him. And if he didn't do something soon, he might lose you forever.